If you're passionate about classical education and you're looking for the next step, Hillsdale College's Diana Davis Spencer Graduate School of Classical Education is now offering 2 master's degree programs. These programs provide students with a broad philosophical, historical, literary, and pedagogical perspective on classical education. The Master of Arts in Classical Education is a 2-year, in-person program on Hillsdale's campus in Michigan, while the Master of Classical Education Leadership is a 3-year hybrid program with a 1-week summer class held at Hillsdale College. Whether you're interested in teaching, administration, or another area within the field of classical education, we're prepared to offer you a foundational, time-proven approach to your studies. We want to see your application soon. Applications must be submitted on or before December 15, 2024 for full consideration. To learn more and submit your application, visit classicalgrad.hillsdale.edu. That's classicalgrad.hillsdale.edu.
Welcome to the Hillsdale College K-12 Classical Education Podcast, bringing you insight into classical education and its unique emphasis on human virtue and moral character, responsible citizenship, content-rich curricula, and teacher-led classrooms. Now your host, Scott Bertram.
We continue our series of episodes from presentations delivered at Hoogland Center for Teacher Excellence seminars. The Hoogland Center for Teacher Excellence, an outreach of the Hillsdale College K-12 Education Office, offers educators the opportunity to deepen their content knowledge and refine their skills in the classroom. These one-day conferences are hosted during the academic year in cities across the nation and feature presentations by Hillsdale College faculty, K-12 office staff, and leaders in the Hillsdale network of member schools. There is no cost to attend, and attendees may earn professional development credits. Currently, the Hoogland Center is hosting a series exploring the art of teaching a variety of subjects. To learn more about upcoming events, please visit our website, k12.hillsdale.edu.
It truly is an honor and a privilege to be with you guys today. They made me do one of these talks in September, but it was on literature, and I didn't know what to say, but you guys are math people. You guys are my people, so this is going to be good. But in all honesty, it is an honor to be here. I cannot think of a more important time to be doing what you guys are doing right now. To be teachers means to daily seek to influence the hearts and minds of your students, to love what is good, to engage with complex issues, with fearlessness, with open-mindedness, to converse with members of a community, a classroom community, to think, to reflect, to debate, and to argue with generosity and grace, and to pursue a life that knows and values justice and mercy, knowledge and humility, steadfastness and charity. And I am truly grateful, and I can speak for the rest of the speakers, truly grateful that you guys are doing what you are doing in the classroom on a daily basis. You are world changers in a world that needs some change, and that change happens student by student, classroom by classroom, mind by mind, and I am thankful for the work that you do. I hope you find this week or these couple of days refreshing and perhaps a little inspiring. I am going to offer a brief couple of apologies. I've titled this talk "Crossing Over: the role of mathematics in classical education." And I apologize a little bit in advance for it. I've picked a bit of a complex topic, so strap in. I've picked a little bit of a philosophical topic, so doubly strap in. I'm going to try not to use the words like ontology, because I think there's an inverse relationship between the quality of a talk and the number of times the lecturer was going to use the word ontology, or epistemology for that matter. So not going to try to make it that philosophical, but we have to deal with some philosophy. Third, it's not going to be necessarily as practical or impactful as maybe you might want. I promise you tomorrow morning, if you come back, I will give you the most practical talk you will ever see for the classroom. But even though this is a complex topic, a philosophical topic, not that practical topic, I think it is an absolutely central topic at the heart of mathematics education right now. It's at the heart of math teaching. It's at the heart of education in general. And it's actually at the heart of what I would call a war for the soul of math teaching that's going on right now. A lot of people think that we've lost this war, that this war has been lost maybe even 15, 20 years ago. If you Wikipedia the words math wars, you can read a little bit about parts of this. But I don't think we've lost this war yet. And I am pretty committed to fight for it. And I'm hoping by the end of tonight, I can convince you guys to fight a little bit with me. And I think it may not be the most relevant thing you've ever had. It may not impact you on as specifically as you might like. But I think it's absolutely crucial for us. And to get at the heart of this war, I want to start with this question. Is 51 always 51? Spicy, Dr. Gregg coming in hot. Eric Quakendall's already remembering why he hates mathematics. Here we go. But show of hands, how many of you would say yes? How many of you would say yes? How many of you would say no? How many of you had an idea, but then you realized that I'm trying to trick you by putting this question on the board, and so you're doubting yourself? Okay, good. How many of you are too cool to raise your hand and be vulnerable in front of other people? All right, that gets about everybody. I think it's a really good question in some ways. And I think it's absolutely critical that we answer this question with a yes. Okay? Why do I think this is critical that we must say that 51 is in fact 51? I've got a few reasons for us. Number one, insisting on the 51-ness of 51 preserves relationships. In that I can count on 51, for example, being more than 50, but less than 60. If 51 is not always 51, can't guarantee this. Okay? Number two, it possesses certain properties that I can talk about the nature of 51. For instance, being divisible by 3, but not by 2. Meaning, if my children collected 51 pieces of Halloween candy last weekend, they would be happy to divide it amongst themselves. But if they collected 52, they would not be happy, right? There's some properties of 51 that we require, that I can dig into those properties and build formulas, etc. around them. 51 has to be always 51 for this to work. Number three, it allows for some sort of consistency in calculation, that I can perform these operations on 51 because I can count on it having some sort of consistent value here, okay? And then lastly, I'm going to use the word that I swore I wouldn't use, but I'm going to say it provides an ontological grounding for number, meaning that 51-ness is going to transcend the symbolic, where it doesn't matter how I symbolize 51. I could write it as 5 times 10 plus 1. I could write it as 60 minus 9. I could write 51 as a lot of different ways. I can speak about it in different languages. I can speak about different contexts. But I know that I'm referring to something behind that 51, behind the representation of that 51 that has some sort of nature here, okay? So, this is Paul Lockhart. You're going to get his free book, I think, at the end of this. This is true. Yes, someone? Tomorrow morning. Good. You're not going to get this book, but just as a plug for Lockhart, Lockhart says this. He says, if 3, and he means the digit there, the symbol, if 3 is merely a symbol representing the number 3, then what exactly is 3 itself? Independent of its representation. I've held cats and petted them, but how can I feel or touch 3? This is tough. Of course, it's not as bad as some abstract ideas like hope and love. At least I can hold 3 oranges or 3 feathers in my hand. Nevertheless, 3-ness, that property of collections, is a bit intangible and wispy. Be that as it may, 3 has properties and truths such as being odd that are independent of its representation. Numbers don't start or end at all. They just are. Okay? It is fundamental to mathematics that we are able to answer the question, is 51 always 51, with a yes. I need to be able to count on the objectivity of that 51. Okay? However, is 51 always 51? No. Absolutely not. And it is fundamental to mathematics that we are able to answer this question, is 51 always 51, with the answer no. That I can guarantee you that 51 is not always 51 in some sense. For instance, Let's do this problem that I had on the board just a second ago. 51 plus 43. In your heads, no writing things down. You guys don't need that. The literature people in September needed pens and papers for this one. You guys do not. 51 plus 43, always, always, always. 94, we've done this, yes. How did you think of the 51? In your head. How'd you think of it, right? I thought of it like this, as a 50 and a 1, yes, right? Where the 50 combines with, and I thought of the 43 as a 40 and a 3, and I combined the 50 and the 40 and the 1 and the 3, and I got a 94. This is how we did it. And so 51 was always 51, but this particular 51 made sense to be a 50 and a 1, yes? Try this one in your head. 51 divided by 3. What 51 do I want here? Let's do an answer first. Answer. 17, yes. Right? What 51 do I want? 50 and 1 is the worst. How many of you guys are trying to do the long division in your head with a 50 and a 1? No. You guys are broken. Do not think of it as a 50 divided by 3. Yeah. Thinking of it as a 50 and a 1 is the worst choice, yes? 50 doesn't divide by 3. 1 doesn't divide by 3. Why would I do this? Right? This is the easiest in my head, right? Think of it as a 30 and a 21. I can take the 30 divided by 3, I get a 10. I can get the 21 divided by 3, I get a 7. I know my answer is 17 here. Honestly, almost anything's better than a 50 and a 1, right? 60 and negative 9 is better. 20 minus 3. I'm ready to go, right? Try this one. In your head, 51 plus 97 plus 98. Don't stack them in your head. Don't add the ones that, no. In your head. You guys are broken. Don't, in your head, do this one. What's the best 51 for this problem? Well, let's get an answer here first, right? Answer, 246. Okay. What's the best 51? 50 and 1? Nah, we can do better. Yeah, 46, 3, and 2. Why? Yeah, right? This is the easiest one if you can think of it, yeah? Yeah. You guys are like, oh, okay, yeah, right? Where I can combine the 2 with the 98. This is, the first grade teachers I'm sitting next to can tell this is a this is a number bond, right? This is exactly, we try to teach our students to be able to have this kind of number flexibility. Let's try one more because you guys struggle with that one. This one's a little easier. 51 divided by 12. In your head. Answers. Yeah, 4 and a 4th. Okay. What's the best? Yeah, good, right? 48 and 3, I think, is our best version of 51 here, right? Where I can do the 48 divided by 12, and the 3 divided by 12 I can actually do as well in my head. I don't need to, do the 51 divided by 12 and do the thing, and then write the thing as the numerator and the denominator, and then reduce. I don't need any of that, right? Because I can absolutely. So is 51 always 51? In some sense, absolutely not, right? 51's all sorts of different things. It's 46, 3, and 2. It's 48 and 3. If you come up with any possible representation of 51, I can come up with a problem in which I would use that. 51 can be an infinite number of things. And part of our job as teachers is to get students to be able to have the flexibility to work with 51, where they don't just view it as this rigid thing, but I can break it up. I can have the flexibility to actually pull this kind of thing off, right? Here's Lockhart again, same guy who says 51 is 51. Here he goes. By removing the creative process and leaving only the results of that process, you virtually guarantee that no one will have any real engagement with the subject. By concentrating on what and leaving out why, mathematics is reduced to an empty shell. Mathematics is the art of explanation. If you deny students the opportunity to engage in this activity, to pose their own problems, make their own conjectures and discoveries, to be wrong, to be creatively frustrated, to have an inspiration, and to cobble together their own explanations and proofs, you deny them mathematics itself. Mathematics for Lockhart is a fundamentally objective endeavor, right? 51 is always 51, It's also a fundamentally subjective endeavor. It's fundamentally a human endeavor. It's fundamentally a creative endeavor. 51 is not always 51. I can manipulate it in all sorts of ways here. We absolutely have to answer our question of 51 always 51, yes. We also absolutely have to answer it no. If we miss out on either one of those, we miss out on mathematics itself. Okay? Let's get a little terminology for this. This is where it's going to get a little complex. I'm going to use some longer words, but it's the same question. It's the same question. All right? Let's see. I want to walk you through a book, actually. It was written in 2016 by a guy named Paul Ernest. I don't know if you can see that, but I pulled a little screenshot of the Google Scholar citation. He's got 3,400 citations here, right? This is the guy who's writing on philosophy of mathematics, okay? He's the one. he's your hero. Yeah. Maybe not, but this is, I think, where we're at in the philosophy of mathematics. And he draws this picture here, okay? So he gives us this type of an understanding where he's dividing the philosophy of mathematics into two different terms, okay? Where he divides it into an absolutist philosophy of mathematics and a fallibilist philosophy of mathematics. And then he makes a second division down here. He says there's an authoritarian, or sometimes he calls this dogmatic, view of school mathematics, and a humanistic view of school mathematics. Okay? This is Ernest. And he says this: I've sketched a series of dichotomies between absolute authoritarian and humanistic view of school mathematics, between absolutist and fallibilist philosophies, and also between values. I'm not going to talk about the values right now, but what he's doing is he's saying there's two different visions for what this thing is like. Okay? So I want to dig into each one of these four terms. I want to dig into this, and this, and see if we can understand what he's saying. Okay? Because I think this is going to get complex, but I think this is going to be 100% central to what we're doing here. Okay. Let's do the philosophies first. Okay, absolutist philosophy versus fallibilist philosophy. He describes absolutist philosophy like this. It says, absolutist philosophies view mathematics as an objective, absolute, certain, and incorrigible body of knowledge, which rests on the firm foundations of deductive logic. According to absolutism, mathematical knowledge is timeless, although we may discover new theories and truths to add, it is superhuman and ahistorical, rigid, fixed, logical, absolute, cold, objective, pure, abstract, remote, and ultra-rational. Okay, so I'm not going to dig into each one of these words here, right? But the point of this is mathematics is dealing with absolute truths. It's woven into the very fabric of the cosmos. It has an objectivity to it. I don't get to control it. It has right and wrong answers. This is what I mean when we talk about absolutist philosophies of mathematics. It's very much interested in this idea of truth, right? That if I sit down to do 5 plus 5, and you sit down to do 5 plus 5, we either both get 10 or one of us is wrong, right? That's the kinds of things that absolutist philosophy would say. Okay, let me try fallibilist here. Fallibilism views mathematics as the outcome of social processes. Mathematical knowledge is understood to be fallible and eternally open to revision, both in terms of its proofs and its concepts. It rejects the notion that there is a unique, fixed, and permanently enduring hierarchical structure. Mathematics is associated with sets of social practices, each with its history, persons, institutions, and social locations, symbolic forms, purposes, and power relations. Okay? This means mathematics. This is taking mathematics and it's making it something like a humanity. Okay? Where it's a thing that human beings have control of, that we get to say what we want it to be and what we don't want it to be. That individuals or groups decide on mathematics, and we can decide on different things. That if I want 5 plus 5 to be 8, I totally can have that happen. It may not make sense to you. It may not allow for conversation, but that's a valid thing to do with mathematics. It's a fallibilist understanding of mathematics. No objective truth woven into the nature of the discipline. Okay? And it's this understanding of the discipline as purely subjective. There's a famous debate where one of the people comes back and says, you're just treating mathematics as another humanity. And the person says, that's what it is. Right? That's the understanding of fallibilism. It's no different than we would consider something like rhetoric or something like this, right? That there's a human art. That's what mathematics is, purely, okay? So let's move on to the second dichotomy, okay? Hang in there. Don't lose me. I know I just said the word dichotomy, which makes your eyes lower, but hang in there. I promise you we have some payoff here. So authoritarian view of school mathematics versus humanistic, okay? Well, we're interested in school mathematics now. We're interested in pedagogy. We're interested in what it looks like in the classroom. Okay, school mathematics. Authoritarian view. An absolutist view may be communicated in school by giving students mainly unrelated, routine mathematical tasks, which involve the application of learned procedures, and by stressing that every task has a unique, fixed, and objectively right answer, coupled with disapproval and criticism of any failure to achieve this answer. Okay? Dogmatic is if you don't like authoritarian, dogmatic is the word that Ernest uses in some other places. Okay? It's very rigid. We're going to teach students formulas. We're going to have them apply these formulas. We're going to have them use these formulas. We're going to imagine, whacking people on the knuckles with rulers. This is the kind of pedagogy that we're talking about here. Maybe that's a little extreme, but the idea is that you take this understanding of that mathematics is objective, and you say anything outside of that objectivity is worthy of being, punished or maybe not punished, but graded poorly and critiqued. And really, what we want to do is we want to turn our students into these automatous machines that can produce right answers. Okay, if math is about getting right answers, we make our students into machines that get right answers. And that's the best thing we can do with math teaching. That's what we would call an authoritarian view of school mathematics. Okay? Humanistic view is the humanistic image of mathematics promoted by modern progressive mathematics education is accessible, personally relevant, and creative. Okay? You're treating your students as human beings, and so you do some kinds of things. You'd ask them questions. You would ask them to draw pictures. You would ask them to think. You would ask them to reason. You would explore their ideas, even if they're wrong in some sense. You would go and treat them as human beings in a certain sense. Okay? It values creativity. It values thinking. It values problem solving. It values giving them things that they can access in a sense. It values, if you want more thoughts on what a humanistic view of school mathematics is, come to my talk tomorrow morning. This is what we're going to be talking about, okay? How to actually do this kind of thing. How to treat students as human beings via your pedagogy. And so he's drawing a line between these two different forms of teaching in the classroom. Okay, so hopefully we have an understanding of what these four things are. And so far, I don't see a problem. Okay? He's saying, okay, there's two different dichotomies that we've got floating around. Hang with me. Here's the problem. This is Ernest. These dichotomies are all to some extent parallel. So that traditional cold images of mathematics, absolutist philosophies of mathematics, separated values in mathematics classrooms with a separated image of mathematics all work together and reinforce one another. He's saying that this flows directly into this. Now you can see the dark arrows here. He's saying that these things naturally go hand in hand. Okay? He says, similarly, positive, inviting public images of mathematics, fallibus philosophies of mathematics, connected values in classrooms promoting a connected image of mathematics are linked and mutually reinforcing. Okay, so he's saying that this goes hand in hand, right? These dark arrows saying that fallibus philosophies of mathematics and humanistic views of school mathematics are connected. What he's doing is this. He's drawing a double do not cross line in the midst of this. Right? He has actually, right, calls this crossing over. Okay? But he says theoretically crossing over would be possible, but it's so rare and it never happens that I hesitate to even put it on my diagram. Okay? What he's trying to do is draw a line between this side of things, where you have an objective philosophy of mathematics and you have a dogmatic pedagogy, or you have a fallibus philosophy and therefore you have a humanistic pedagogy. And here's where I think we start to get at the real problem, where crossing over has been eliminated. The possibility of crossing over. Because I think if we start to think about what mathematics actually is and what it should be, it's neither fully here, nor is it fully here. Right? 51 has to both equal 51 in some real sense and not equal 51 in some real sense. Okay? So I want to talk about a classical understanding of mathematics. And let's do it a couple of ways. First, let's go to the classical education movement. Whether or not you teach at a classical school, it doesn't even matter at this point. Okay? This is just how mathematics should be understood classically. I'm going to show you this in a couple of different ways. But first, let's go for the 4 foundational principles of classical education. This is by guys named Gene Veith and Andrew Kern. They published a book called Classical Education and the Movement Sweeping America in 2015. You're welcome to read that book. It's pretty good. It's not great, but it's pretty good. But I don't know. There are better books. It's a good book. You should pick it up. But they list 4 principles of the classical education movement, right? First, they list the cultivation of wisdom and virtue in students, which I don't think is relevant. But then they list what? A logocentric view of knowledge. Logocentric, meaning objective view of knowledge in some sense. Okay? Which is meaning that when we come to know something, this is an ontological, epistemological claim here, what they're saying is what things are woven into the very fabric of the cosmos. When we know things, we know truth. That's what this is claimed. Logos, truth, right? Or word, right? When we know things, they are truths. Okay? And so what we have here in the classical understanding of mathematics is we absolutely have to have an absolutist understanding of what it means. If you don't believe the Veith and Kern, I'll take you to Augustine. Augustine says, this is the beginning of On Order. This is one of the most beautiful sentences, or a couple of sentences I think that's ever been written. He says, there is an order to be found within and between things that binds and directs this world. To attain and retain that order, to open one's eyes and other people's to it is difficult and very uncommon. Right? This claim, there is an order, is so beautiful. In the fabric of the cosmos, there is a beautiful pattern that underlays everything that we do. Right? That it's found within you, within me, within the natural world, within God, within anything we might want to have, right? And it structures the relationships that we have between us, right? The medievals would have called this the musica mundana, right? The music of the spheres. We got to hear some music, right? He's saying this is the thing that holds us all together in some sense. It unites us, and it governs our lives. Does it exert some sort of crazy control over us? No, but to use C.S. Lewis here, right? This is the deeper magic from the dawn of time. Right? It's the order that underlies the cosmos, right? And mathematics being one of the ways we get at that order. That there's a pattern that's deeper than you, that's deeper than me, that's independent of us as human beings, that's outside in the natural world, woven into the fabric of the cosmos. Right? This is why math teaching is difficult, right? Augustine's making this claim that we ought to get students to learn that order, to keep it, to see it, and to teach it. This is what our call is to that order, that we believe that there is some truth in the world, and that it's our job to live by it in some sense. It's a crazy claim, but I think it's absolutely fundamental here, right? Okay, so we've got 2 principles, and we've got a circle. Let's go for number 3 and 4 here. Number 3 says a responsibility to preserve the liberal arts tradition. I don't think that's particularly relevant in this case, but I want the last one. Like a dialectical pedagogical vision. Dialectical being back and forth. Humane in some sense is the word that gets used. Socratic in some ways. You want more thoughts on how to do Socratic pedagogy? Come to my talk tomorrow. Right, okay, you guys are getting it. Go to Carrie's talk tomorrow, also going to be Socratic pedagogy. You're going to get either one. It doesn't really matter. You could, just show up tomorrow. Just be in the building. You're going to get this. But what we have here, this is, in some ways, very student-centered, or at least student participation, that I'm going to follow the example of Socrates and ask questions. I'm going to go back and forth. dialogue, dialectical pedagogy, right? It's an active vision for this, okay? And so what I think we have is we have another circle here, right? We have to have, in some ways, a humane understanding of school mathematics. That I do believe that there are truths in the cosmos, but I don't believe the best way for students to learn them is just to ram them down their throats, right? And I do believe that I want creativity in my students, but that doesn't mean that mathematics is just this fallibilist relative thing that doesn't have any objective truth, right? And so what we have here, actually, let's go here. I just did something from where? 386. Let's go something modern. This is 2009. This is a guy named Stratford Caldecott. He writes a book called Beauty for Truth's Sake on a recovery of mathematics education. He says this. Looks a pretty good-looking guy. We need to reestablish a truly humane education that begins with the senses and the discovery and cultivation of harmony and beauty in the soul by way of the senses' natural affinity for the harmonious, proportionate, and the beautiful in nature and the arts. Okay, look what he's claiming here. This is a humane education. It is based on the nature of our students and our teachers, but it's based on the nature of students, that we know that they have senses and can discover and feel things within them that resonate. Right? Notice the musical language here, right? That I have a natural affinity for the things that are good, true, and beautiful. And that all I need to do is get them utilizing that natural affinity. It's a humanistic understanding of how we teach, right? Where I actually care about what my students are like. And so what we have here is, if we're understanding mathematics rightly, and mathematics teaching and learning rightly, the only possible way to understand this correctly is neither on this side, nor is it on this side, right? We require this. We require a classical understanding of mathematics teaching and learning requires us to cross over. It requires us to maintain an absolutist philosophy of mathematics combined with a humanistic pedagogy. This is the only way we ought to teach and learn mathematics, is with this vision in mind. Okay? And everyone around us, everyone is pushing on either side of this. We've thrown up this double red line that creates an impossibility for this crossing over. And let me show you why I think this, okay? Here's some evidence for this. What happens when we squeeze out and or systematically eliminate the potential for classical understanding of mathematics teaching and learning? What happens when this no longer becomes a possible road for us to take? What happens when we insist upon this double red line? Okay? Well, I think we can very clearly see what happens. It's happened over the past 25 years. I'm going to show you, I'll give you some evidence for what's happened. First, the thing that happened is this, which I think is correct. Remember, I don't want an authoritarian view of school mathematics. That's not a good thing. We know this. But what happens right here? This is Lockhart again. Lockhart says, you get this book in just a bit. You can read the whole thing. Right? This is the one. They get this one. Mathematicians lament, this is true? Yes, good. Okay. Lockhart says, it's heartbreaking to see what's being done to mathematics in school. This rich and fascinating adventure of the imagination has been reduced to a sterile set of facts to be memorized and procedures to be followed. Students are asked to memorize a formula, then apply it over and over in the exercises. Gone is the thrill, the joy, even the pain and frustration of the creative act. There is not even a problem anymore. The question has been asked and answered at the same time. There's nothing left for the student to do. Right? Lockhart is literally lamenting the state of mathematics teaching and learning. He's saying this thing right here is not a good thing. And I agree with him, right? That's not a good thing because it doesn't work, because students don't like math. This is why they hate math. And it doesn't actually get them to learn well here, right? We all agree that this is not a good thing. And I think it's the easiest thing to see that it's not a good thing. But look what happens if you have this double red line, okay, and you've eliminated this thing down here. What necessarily must you also eliminate? This thing, yes? Because it's on the same side of the double red line, right? Which leaves us with what? It leaves us with this, right? Which I think is partially good. There's something good here, but it's left us with this. And this, I think, is one of the key things that ought to be fought against, and that I'm hoping you will fight with me on, against, right? you probably don't see this very much, right? You probably don't have people in your lives who have this very fallibilist understanding of mathematics. It's because it's not that old, right? But I just graduated the PhD in math education from MSU, and I'm not tooting my own horn here, but I'm saying, like, this is what is being taught at the School of Education, and this is what's being taught at the graduate level, and this is what the scholarship is happening. And I guarantee you that probably in, I would say 5 years, but maybe a couple more, this is going to be the thing that's starting to drift its way all the way into classrooms, where mathematics is going to be backgrounded by a fallibilist understanding. Okay, here, I will give you some evidence for this. This is a 2000 book. It's called Where Mathematics Comes From. It's by a guy's named George Lakoff, Rafael Nunez. Actually a semi-decent book. It's on embodied cognition, which is really fascinating stuff. Super fan of embodied cognition, if anyone wants to ask about that. Yeah. But again, I'm not pulling stuff from the fringes of math ed here, right? This is cited by 5,400 people. This is central text to mathematics education right now. And here's what they say. They lay out in their opening, they lay out a romance of mathematics. And as you're reading this, it's truly delightful stuff, right? Mathematics has an objective existence. Right? Love that, right? Mathematics allows us to discover transcendent truths of the universe. Ah, yes, good, right? Mathematics is part of the physical universe, provides structure to it. We see mathematics in nature. Oops. Mathematics characterizes logic, right? Reasoning and problem solving. To learn mathematics is therefore to learn the language of nature. Okay? These are lovely ideas that they're laying out. You can feel the other shoe about to drop, right? Here's what they say. The more we have applied what we know about cognitive science to understand the structure of mathematics, the more it has become clear that this romance cannot be true. Human mathematics, the only kind of mathematics that human beings know, cannot be a subspecies of an abstract transcendent mathematics. Instead, it appears that mathematics as we know it arises from the nature of our brains and our embodied experience. As a consequence, every part of this romance appears to be false for reasons that we will be discussing. What's happening in mathematics education, right, is because we have stripped out this, rightfully so, and drawn this double line, we've stripped out this as well. And what we're left with is this. If you want to talk about the predominant philosophy of mathematics that exists in our world today, it's fallibilism. Okay? And so what we have here, right, the consequence is that we believe that mathematics is just another humanity, that it's just something that is relative, that it's subjective, that it's cultural, that it's, it has no connection to objectivity whatsoever, that it's not woven into the fabric of the cosmos, that 51 does not equal 51 in any sense. 51 can be whatever we want it to be. Okay? And here's the real issue. It's not necessarily with the philosophy that's problematic. Okay? Is look what it's starting to do to our pedagogy. This is mandatory professional development seminar curriculum for all public school teachers in Oregon. And it's about a 90-page curriculum that all teachers in Oregon had to do. It's a pathway to equitable math instruction, dismantling racism in mathematics instruction. And there's a lot of pretty decent stuff in here. Like legitimate good recommendations for pedagogy. And I think that it's absolutely essential that our mathematics teaching not be racist. And I think it's absolutely essential that we look to dismantle some of those types of things. But look at the things that they have decided that they proclaim as part of the structures of racism that are in our mathematics pedagogy. Okay? It says white supremacy culture in mathematics classroom can show up where the focus is on getting the right answer. Can show up when teachers are teachers and students are learners. Can show up when math is taught in a linear fashion and skills are taught sequentially. Can show up when students are required to show their work. It can show up when grading practices focus on the lack of knowledge. There are some legitimately racist practices in our mathematics education, but none of these are them. Right? These things are about the absolutist philosophy of mathematics. And the real problem with this is if we're focusing on these things as the structures of racism, we've absolved ourselves of the real responsibility of dismantling any kind of racism in our classrooms. We've outsourced it to be, it's the math that's racist. Right? It's not that. Right? These things are fundamental to our understanding of mathematics. Right? Mathematics, right? If mathematics is a cultural phenomena, then it can be classist, racist, sexist, right? Instead of the people being classist, racist, sexist, right? So mathematics itself has become the thing that we've associated with this problem instead of it being something that has some sort of absolutist understanding of the nature of mathematics. So what do we do? As teachers and administrators, I think we have a responsibility to break down these supposed dichotomies and preserve some sort of a classical understanding of mathematics that is grounded in absolutist philosophy but employs a humane pedagogy. We have to do this. We have to insist upon a crossing over in the nature of mathematics and in the pedagogy. We have to be the ones who do the work to say, I don't want this as much as the next person, but I also am not willing to go here. Right? And it's going to take some work because all the things in our culture are moving us to have there's a double line right here. But I think if you actually believe in the nature of mathematics, if you understand how it should be taught and what it is, it requires us to do something like this. So, how? Two ways. One, we insist upon it in the way that we speak about our profession as mathematics teachers. You guys are the math teachers. You get to be the ones to talk about what mathematics is, and you need to speak about it in these types of things. I'm trying to do that right now. I'm trying to equip you guys to do this type of thing, to give you the words, to be able to talk about, I believe in a humane pedagogy, but I also believe in an absolutist philosophy. Secondly, and more importantly, we model it and we prove that such a connection is possible through the ways that we teach. We need to teach this way. Because everyone else is saying you can't do it. There's a double line there. It's impossible to believe this and to teach this, to believe in truth and to teach humanely. And so we have to actually do it. We have to use our pedagogy to pull this thing off. So, how do we do this? Pick a pedagogical dimension. I won't go too far into this chart, but I'll pick any pedagogical dimension you want. I'll pick the teacher presence, role of the teacher, nature of classroom talk, patterns of discourse, teacher questions, student explanations, mathematics curriculum, and tasks. Pick anything you want about pedagogy. I think you can absolutely articulate what a absolutist philosophy and a humanistic pedagogy starts to look like. And they're connected. Right? Where teachers, take a couple examples, right? Teachers should prompt students to explain their reasoning. That's humane. I want my students talking. As a means of cementing their understanding of truth. Teachers should encourage students to explore multiple solution pathways. That's humane. To distinguish between what is true and what is false. That this exploration is actually interested in discovery of truth, not just exploration for exploration's sake or exploration for student empowerment. Right? That actually, not just do these two things have a separate good in them, but they're connected. That actually the way to teach humanely is to have an understanding of the nature of mathematics. These are connected. This enables this in some key ways. I won't go into that chart super detailed because I think we're a little short on time, but let me give some keys here. Some of the things that I do that when I'm doing these things, I do them, I feel like I'm at my best crossing over. So number one is this idea of wonder. And wonder is a nebulous thing, but I'm going to do it tomorrow. We're going to talk about wonder, and we're going to tell you how to make wonder happen. Okay? But notice what wonder is. Wonder is some sort of marvel at the beauty of the cosmos. That's objective. Right? But it also draws on emotions of the students. It's subjective. Anytime you're getting at wonder, you're doing both of those things simultaneously. Number 2, I use modeling and I use pictures. Right? Because I'm trying to visualize an objective structure of mathematics, but I'm doing it in a way that invokes the creativity of the student. Getting them drawing, getting them building, getting them using manipulatives. Right? I want to get them actually using this kind of embodied cognition that Lakoff and Nunez are talking about. Embodied cognition works best in an absolutist framework. Number 3, I said this a little bit ago, but student explanations. They certainly are aiming at the truth. We're trying to explain the truth about something. But they also honor the thinking of the student in some key way. Right? It's about student thought. And lastly, I'm at my best doing this crossing over when I'm exploring wrong answers. When I'm taking a wrong answer of a student, and instead of being like, nope, wrong, or instead of being like, that's the dogmatic pedagogy, or instead of being like, yeah, whatever you want, man, right? That's the fallibilist philosophy, right? But I'm at my best when I take that wrong answer and be like, ooh, that's a good thought. What about this? What about this? Does it work here? Does it work here? What if 9 plus 5 is 15, what's 9 plus 6? Oh, right? Where I'm interested in getting at the wrong answer, but I'm also interested in listening and responding to student ideas no matter how wrong they are. A wrong answer is gold in the classroom. So, okay, a few last thoughts. Number 1, I think mathematics education is at risk in some sense. And there's dangers on both sides, right? We certainly have some danger in terms of dogmatic pedagogy, right? And we have danger of some fallibilist philosophy here, right? But the real danger is squeezing out the possibility of combining an absolutist philosophy with a humane pedagogy. Right? If that's not even a possibility, then you have to submit to one of these two dangers. Right? You may not see this on a daily level about, you don't often think about what's the philosophy of education that I'm operating with or what's going on here, right? But this is a war that's happening. Right? And regardless if you understand that or recognize it or not, right? As math teachers, you guys are a part of it. And at some point, you're going to be required to take a stand with the way that you teach and the way that you talk about mathematics. I hope you talk about it this way. Number 2, though they will perhaps never understand all the philosophical backgrounding, the ability to see the bonds between objectivity and subjectivity, the objectivity of the world and the subjectivity of their own humanity, is one of the most important and challenging things for a student to do. Right? Think about the is 51 always 51? Right? This is one of the key things that a student has to be able to answer both yes and no to that question. They have to understand that there are truths that are woven into the universe, and that we look to them for patterns and principles and guidance. But also, we invoke our own humanity. We try stuff. We mess around with stuff. We are wrong. We're creative. And this combination is the very essence of number flexibility, where it understands what number is. Right? And so even on a very minute level, we want some sort of understanding of objectivity and subjectivity in combination. That's what it means to live life. We deal with the things that are objective and true. We also bring our humanity to bear. Right? Or zoom way out. Right? That one of the hardest things as a student is to come up with some sort of sense of, I'll go along a big word here, right? Theoanthropocosmic synthesis, right? Where the divine, the human, and the world, how do those work together? How do I work with my own humanity and the nature of God and the world around me? This is the fundamental question that students have to ask. And so being able to preserve something, a combination of objectivity and subjectivity in our math classrooms, is going to be the thing that we want to teach students anyways. And lastly, this is actually the key to happiness in some sense. All right? Recall Aristotle's understanding of happiness. He calls it eudaimonia, which means an activity in accordance with virtue. Right? Virtue being something objective, being something absolutist, being something woven into the fabric of the cosmos, being something true, but also activity, being something humane, being something that looks different in different contexts, being something that requires us to actually engage with this in some sort of personal, individual, subjective manner. This is Aristotle's understanding of what it means to be happy. So not only do we want our students to have some sort of understanding of what math is, not only do we want there to be, not only is this going to be a thing that's going to be essential for their character, but it's also, I think, going to be one of the keys to make them happy. Thank you all.
If you enjoyed this lecture, we encourage you to visit our website, k12.hillsdale.edu, for additional information on upcoming Hoogland Center events and other free resources for educators.